welcome everyone to episode 3 of our new online series. So before we begin, I just want to, say a few words about the MIT Sloan CIO Symposium. Please save the date, May 20th, 2025. We hope that you're there. For VIPs, there will also be a pre-event on May 19th. And regarding this online series, we are hoping to host these live eventually, but just as we're booting up and getting started, we are doing some pre-recorded events like this one. So with that, we're going to get going. So Irving, how are you?
Allan, I've really enjoyed recording this podcast, which are a very nice online fireside chat. So I'm looking forward to do this one as well.
Well, based upon the text messages that we've exchanged, I have a feeling that you're particularly interested in this one.
It's true, because this one is truly dealing with new kinds of subjects that I've only been learning about for the last, let's say, year or 2 years, when I try to learn more about not AI as a technology, but the other kind of intelligence on which AI is based.
So let me ask you a personal question.
Yes.
All right. Now, this might be a little odd, but Irving, are you a stochastic parrot?
Not at all. Remember, I mentioned 2 kinds of intelligence. There is the machine intelligence, AI, large language models. I am of the other kind, which is human intelligence. And as it turns out, what I learned from this paper by 2 linguists, Emily Bender and Alexander Kohler, is that the way we deal with language is very different between the machines and the humans. If you look at the machine, like large language models, they've been trained by gigantic amounts of data that comes from the World Wide Web, from digital books, from all kinds of reports and so on. And then the data is analyzed by really powerful supercomputers with special GPUs and other things like that. And what an analysis does is look at the data, split it up into words and phrases, what they call tokens, and then use these billions of tokens to, when I say something, to try to figure out what I said by, okay, here is a token. Based on my training data, what's the probability that the next token Irving said is this one, and the one after that is that one? And in the same way, when they are generating the response, they do something, then they say, what's the probability that this next one will be valid? They do that, and so on. In other words, the large language model is only doing things statistically, but they don't at all understand what I said or what they are generating for me. And that's why Bender and Kohler said, it's an impressive piece of machine, but it is a stochastic parrot that doesn't understand.
So if I say polywana to an LLM, it'll say
I don't
cracker.
know what they'll say.
Well, it'll say cracker.
They may say cracker if in the training data that you use to train it, the word Pollyanna is most of the time followed by cracker. If that's the case, they will say that. If that's not the case, they won't say that.
So the bottom line is that a stochastic parrot, the concept of just picking the next word based on a statistical analysis, is more descriptive of an LLM than it is of you.
Totally. The way you and I talk to each other, as we're doing right now, is that we need to understand the meaning of what we're saying. I need to understand. Remember, this is something I just learned from this paper by the two linguistic professors. What's your communicative intent? Why did you ask me about stochastic parrots? So my mind is going through trying to figure this out. I have a model of our conversations. I need to get the meaning so that I can sort of then decide what is Allan after in making this point. And then I decide, Allan is doing social conversation. He's making a little bit of a joke. So I'm going to reply similarly.
Exactly. So you know that I'm drawing a distinction between a human and an LLM, whereas an LLM has no idea what the intent of my question is. All it can do is predict the next word.
Yeah. Now, remember, just because we say the poor LLM does not understand and is different from you and I'm not putting it down. The large language models, generative AI, are an incredible human engineering achievement. But I would say you and I and your little granddaughter and all the other people in the world are an incredible human achievement, probably because of millions of years of evolution that have shaped our brain, that have shaped how we communicate, on and on and on and on. So
Well,
different, that's all.
although I just want to highlight something here, though. The LLMs work because they're trained on a vast quantity of data. If they didn't have that vast quantity of data, they wouldn't be able to make these
Yeah.
statistical inferences. And I think what you're telling me is that the human mind doesn't need all that data to function. It's actually doing something different.
It's doing something different, more based on living in the real world, dealing with all kinds of people, sort of figuring out when people are talking to, let me keep saying your little granddaughter, what are they trying to tell me? Why am I saying that? And so this socialization, the social aspects of humans interacting with each other and learning how to get meaning, how to respond effectively, and so on, is totally different. Why do we behave this way? Well, because those humans that learn how to communicate, how to interact with other humans, had a much higher probability of surviving, of reproducing. So it gets down to natural selection and so on, which is how our brains got shaped. And it's really fascinating. I have to tell you, it is.
So So in terms of these linguists, then the LLM is really dealing with one aspect called form. I think that's what you called it.
That's what they call it, yes.
And that humans deal with other aspects, communicative intent, meaning,
Meaning and understanding.
and understanding.
And those are the ones, remember, linguists have analyzed all these, the communication intent, the meaning, the understanding is how we make sense of the world around us based on our experiences of the world around us since we were little babies. And that That's the way we do things, and LLMs don't live in the world around us. So, but again, they have their role when it comes to machine translation, when it comes to uh, generating text from speech. It is an incredible achievement, but absolutely incredible engineering achievement, but very totally different from our brains.
Well, in a way, I guess I kind of find it amazing that LLMs work as well as they do, because if you think about it, they're only operating on the form of the language. They don't
Yes,
understand the meaning, they don't understand the intent. And in fact, I think you also said that LLMs have no capacity to reason.
no, they really don't, because I've also been reading papers by cognitive scientists and neuroscientists. MIT has some we have superb department of computer sciences, but we also have really good departments of cognitive sciences, neuroscientists. The McGovern Institute does a lot of work here, and they do a lot of research on the structure of the brain and how our brain got like that. And one of the things they found is that the parts of our brain that deal with language are totally different from the parts of the brain that deal with solving problems, doing arithmetic, listening to music. Those are different parts of the brain. And, and, and when our brain does something, it's a system of systems, if I may use that word. It puts it all together, and they've done quite a bit of work. Could you solve problems? Could you do math? Could you analyze it if you just had the part of the brain that does linguistics? You couldn't. How do they do that research? Because they see what people, let's say, who have lesions of the brain can do or cannot do. So a lot of this is trying to understand the parts of the brain. They also do functional MRI. So it's fascinating research. The net of this is AI is incredible, but the human brain is even more incredible. That
Yeah,
would be my conclusion.
but Irving, from a practical standpoint, do you think that uh, there might be so much hype around AI right now, specifically around LLMs, because people perceive that the LLMs are actually doing more than they are?
Yes, that for sure, for sure. And in fact, one of our keynote speakers at the MIT CIO Symposium, Rodney
Rodney
Brooks,
Brooks.
yeah, he said that one of the things he's found about AI is that when people see a machine doing something like an LLM, since they are so used to dealing with people, they assume that the machine is behaving like a person. So when you behave, when you're talking to a person like you and I are doing, we understand each other. So if you were an LLM that somehow is trying to imitate Alan Tate, I would assume, well, so this LLM is doing such a great job, it must do all the things Alan Tate does. So I start ascribing to the LLM the ability to solve problems and the ability to understand things that, in fact, it cannot do. And at some level, I feel sad for the LLM because it is doing such a great job, but we are expecting more from them because we get confused and assume, well, they are an artificial brain. So they can do what a brain can do, and that's not the case. And that's what gives rise to the hype and the
Well, not
misunderstanding.
just the hype, but also, I mean, do you think that there could be a danger that there's somewhat overinvestment right now
Well,
in AI?
but that always happens when we get excited about a new technology. Remember, Allan, in the 90s, we were incredibly excited about the internet and the World Wide Web. I mean, for us, it felt magical. Wouldn't you
Mm,
agree that
definitely.
you know, in the 90s, you can send an email to anybody in the world and they would get it. You can access just about anything on the World Wide Web with a browser. Then e-commerce came in. You can go shopping anywhere. What did the um, investment markets do? They way overinvested in the technology companies, and we had a bubble, and at the end of the 90s, the bubble burst. So a lot of people have been writing and thinking that, you know, we are in another hype, again, excited about AI, excited about LLMs, maybe over investing in the kinds of returns that they might get in the near terms, in let's say 3 to 5 years. And if you and I come in and pour a little bit of cold water and say, you know, if you're excited about the returns in 10 years, that sounds more realistic because everything that the kind of analysis economists do, like Daron Acemoglu, who just a few weeks ago was a recipient, a co-recipient of the Nobel Prize in Economics, Daron said that the kinds of estimate for productivity and so on, people say in 3 to 5 years, his data doesn't get that. He's been analyzing a lot of data. However, if we start talking now longer term, 10 years or more, he's totally positive about we will get. So it's a matter of expectations.
Sure, sure. But in order to reach those higher levels of return, we're going to have to build AIs that do more
Of
than
course,
just these LLMs do today.
exactly. And to be honest, we have to work. I'm talking now about the symposium and asking CIOs to come to MIT to do that. We have to learn from the CIOs what are the use cases that would really help the companies that they are CIOs for. What are the things that have real business return that will increase the productivities of their employees, that will generate new products and services, and we have to learn that from them. And at the same time, we have to expose them to the research being done at MIT and other places that are looking into the future and saying, these are the things that we're all excited. Alan,
So,
just as an example, I don't have the exact term, but just I think last week, our president in MIT launched a major healthcare initiative. I don't know if you remember that.
no, I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's a big MIT-wide health initiative, which is going to look at the impact of AI on health research, pharmaceutical research. That's the kind of stuff we need to do.
Oh, do you remember the Watson project back in the IBM days? How much
Yes,
promise that was supposed to have?
yes, and it was total hype.
Correct.
And the, you know,
It won at Jeopardy.
it won Jeopardy. So then people who were involved in the project got so excited, they said, Next is cancer. Listen, if you're going to take a healthcare problem to address, cancer is a very, very difficult one. Second, if you want to address AI from a business point of view, don't go after healthcare. Why don't you take something simpler? And they just got too excited after winning Jeopardy, and that always happens. We get overexcited about what our technologies can do. We overinvest in them. The hype gets too high. Then you have a bit of a crash. And then over time, after a lot of research, all the fruits of the technology start paying off.
Well, I mean, I do think that LLMs provide a threat to conventional search engines. I mean, I know a lot of people who now go to a chatbot even before they go to Google now because it does a better job of producing results that are
Yeah, but
interesting. But
that's
don't
what an LLM should do, complement what a search engine does, make it
I was about to say that because there's a human in the loop and that the results aren't critical. I mean, just like with search, you have to look at the results and determine whether it's giving you back something that's relevant. In fact,
exactly.
I'm sure you remember the early days of search, a number of the
Yeah,
items that you get back were completely irrelevant.
exactly. And you know, for example, part of what I'm sure this new MIT initiative will do is try to understand what are the safe applications of using technology to help healthcare practitioners. Would you just say, instead of going to the doctor or whatever, just ask Gen AI LLM? No, don't do that. Is it okay to have, in fact, we heard this from David Otter also. Is it, you know, another one of our keynote speakers, he said, is it okay to have, let's say, a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner be able to do an even bigger job than they can do now? Remember, those two careers, you have to get at least a master's, but you don't need an MD. Could AI help them get more knowledge so they can do a better job that before only MDs could handle? And he said that's one of the promises of AI.
Irving, do you ever worry though that the humans might get too complacent with the LLMs? I mean, as you've pointed out, the LLM is not actually reasoning. It's not actually solving a problem. It's doing a word predictive analysis to give back an answer. And again, I want to come back to this point. It's kind of amazing that the LLMs are as effective as they are, given that they're just um, doing a stochastic analysis of vast amounts of data. But do you think like a nurse practitioner might get used to the LLM giving the right answer and not recognize that, you know, in one case it hallucinates?
I think that nurse practitioner or physician assistant would soon find themselves out of a job. There is nothing like the marketplace to help you figure out if what you're doing is right or wrong. Remember, part of what happens during the internet bubble is lots of startups were created. Some went on to become Amazon and Google and so on. Those did very well. Others were trying to do things that nobody wanted or that the technology wasn't quite ready to do. And once the bubble burst, they went out of business, and it took a few years for things to come back. So, you know, the market imposes a very rigorous discipline on what works and what doesn't work. And that will be true of AI as it was before with the internet. And some applications are great, some are not. And
Yeah, well, so let me ask you a question about another application. So LLMs have met some success doing first level customer service. You know, like if you have a question about an
yeah,
application, you can go in, ask your question. But here's the interesting thing. I read some analysis that customers sometimes like going to the machine first so they don't have to interact with a human. Have you read anything about this?
well, look, in many cases, when I need to understand something, I go online and I do a search to sort of get the lay of the land.
Hmm.
And often that answers all the questions I have, and it's a very simple way of doing that. Other times, I need to deal with a human, and then I try to reach the human. And more and more customer service, except for some more um, higher end companies, doesn't always work. You go in, they tell you have to wait for 20 minutes, and then the human that's supposed to help you doesn't know that much. Well, I think something like that may well happen with AI, that in many cases, AI will help us find the information we need. By AI, I mean a Gen AI customer service application, and that may be good enough if it doesn't make mistakes, if it quote unquote hallucinates. In my mind, a hallucination is a bug. You know, forget the hallucination. It's a bug just like any other computer bug. Then after a while, I won't use that application. If it's a well-designed application where if it doesn't know something, it will realize that and say, let me get you to the right person who is going to answer your question, then it will work well. So I think that poorly designed AI-based customer service applications will not do well and will actually frustrate customers who will keep saying agent, 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 and the AI will say,
You don't think they'll do well?
they will over time. This gets back to over time. The,
Well,
the
well,
company that the,
actually, I was going to say that I have used some of these AI agents and actually had very good luck with them.
Well, then they were well designed. I didn't say none of them will do well. I said the ones that are well designed, well tested, and so on will do very well and will increase the productivity of the companies because they can get more done with from their employees. The productivity will go up. But I also think that other companies won't invest the necessary work in having good applications, and then their customer service will suffer. We've seen that in the past, where
Yeah.
if a company did bad automation, is worse than no automation. Is one of the things we have learned. And that is particularly true with AI because our expectations are so high, because it's supposed to be intelligent. So we are expecting at almost human level of intelligence. And if it doesn't give us the right answer or give us the wrong answer, whatever, it will be frustrating. So the companies have to be very careful. Allan, I look forward to hear from our CIOs who come to the symposium in May to learn what are they doing and what do
Exactly.
they think.
Hey, so listen, as we wrap up here, Irving, now this conversation, you actually have 4 blog posts in the community for those that have joined the Friends plan. Do, do you have them handy, or you want me just to run through them?
Just run through them.
Okay, so you have large language models, mistaking engineering achievements for human linguistic competence.
Yeah,
You have another blog post called Language as a Tool for Communication, Not for Thinking. You have another blog post called Are GPT-3 and ChatGPT Truly Intelligent? Apparently not. And you have another one called Large Language Models, a Cognitive and Neuroscience Perspective. So, I think we've given everybody a little bit of a teaser
yeah,
of what these 4 blog posts is about, but certainly if people want to learn more, they can go to your blog, again, which they can find on our community, and really dig in.
yeah, I think so. I think we've covered pretty much the main points that I made in those 4 blogs. And also, let me urge people to come to this symposium in May, because, we'll talk about a number of other subjects that are very important, but I'm sure these kinds of conversations about how to get the maximum from technologies, which is what a lot of what we do in the symposium, is something we'll discuss quite a bit.
Exactly. Well, in the meantime, I just want to thank people who watched this recording and joined episode 3 of our online series. I'll just remind folks one more time that they can go to our online community and join the Friend Plan, where this recording will be posted. But for now, that's all we have. So, bye-bye.